Good evening to all. You are on the Soul Seek Journal, man. And so I find myself, and just a quick side note again, I think it's interesting that, in order to explore life, a lot of us, I think the majority of us, we actually start with death. I think it's very ironic, but we know that life and death go hand in hand. It's like the polar opposites, but it's exactly the same thing in a way. Both scary, uh, both unknown. Both can at any point start or end, and so I think that that exploration of life. A lot of us, most of us, start with death, and so having witnessed and having sat through my father passing. This was 3 years ago. It was 3 years ago on December 30th, and what I mean by is, like, I watched people die, like I watched people pass throughout my life, but this was different because he basically dying at started dying at 10:30. I'm sorry, at 9:30 in the morning, and it lasted to 1 p.m. And it was just this horrendously painful to sit through experience, because he was in so much pain, and he was heavily medicated, and and I think from everything I've gathered, again, I don't want to go too deep into philosophy, but from everything I gathered, it's very, very difficult for consciousness to grasp what's happening at the moment of death, when the brain is so heavily medicated, and which he was. And the crazy thing is that he's one of these old school, Soviet slash Ukrainian guys that obviously was always against drugs, and I mean, he drank his whole life. But I think, like, people get used to the feeling of alcohol, and let's say the feeling of opioids, or other sort of brain impairing drugs. I think it's very different. So it was painful. It was very painful to sit through that. So yeah, it was very painful to sit through that. It had a very huge impact on me, and especially because uh, my father and I did not have a good relationship. He was basically, you know, he's basically not around, and when he was around, he was, when he was drinking, I mean, I don't want to speak that way on the dead, but I just want to put it out there that he wasn't happy with, obviously, the way he was living. He was working really hard for 16 hours a day, and when that weekend came, I guess, a person wants to mentally numb themselves, and I think that's another important thing to note, is the majority of us, lower class, middle class people, we're pushed to basically grind and work nonstop, and mostly, do these jobs that we don't want to be doing, man. And it's heartbreaking. It really is, because a person gets stuck in that sort of comfort zone, even if it's a painful comfort zone. But I mean, repeating the same thing every day, and not really giving themselves a chance to explore and try something else. A lot of times people don't have a chance to, right? Like, you you gotta work, man. You have a family to feed, or you know, things to, bills to pay, and all of these things. So, and then when the person finally comes, close to dying, they start realizing that, oh my God, man, like I could have done this and I could have done that, and I shouldn't have did this and I shouldn't have done that. And it's sad to witness, man. And because we didn't have a good relationship, him passing was very hard on me, because all of a sudden all these internal, you know all this internal crap was resurfacing, man. Because I think it's always hard to lose someone, but I think it's a lot easier when you had a good relationship with a person, and you don't have that many regrets, and so you sort of send them on their way in goodwill, if that's ever possible. But when someone passes and you had a real shitty relationship, man, and there was so many mistakes that happened and so many regrets, it's really tough, man, because all that stuff, at least for me, all that stuff just resurfaces, man. A lot of stuff comes up from the basement. A lot of stuff you have to deal with all over again at a whole new perspective, man. Because now you can't go and apologize, or talk about it, or whatever. It's this internal battle. And so it was very hard on me, extremely hard on me. And God bless my beautiful wife. I don't know how she went through that, just being the observer. And obviously I don't want to just say observer, because obviously she went through it with me. And God bless her for that. But and then like 6 months later, things got a little easier, and I connected back with someone that I knew. Shout out to Daniel. And we were around one another for 3 months straight, and this was a human being that I till this day respect unconditionally, man, and I got so much love for him. And so now a new phase of life was starting, because we were about to embark on this journey of opening up this media company, and finally doing all the things that I should have been doing for all these years, creative wise. And so then like a year into our journey, Daniel passes away, man, and that hit me super hard from a whole different side, because he was only 50, man. He was 50, a family man, 3 kids. And so that just hit me different, man, because I couldn't understand, such a beautiful person, man. And so I guess that experience took me back to phase 1 of my mourning. And then for the remaining 6 months after that, I found myself in constantly having migraines and being in pain, and just completely struggling, because it was wearing down on me psychologically. And then I seemed to, again, thank God to my wife, I have seemed to pass that phase, like I dealt with a pain, and then some other pain, my back pain, because my nervous system was cracking down, man. Then I started having these major back pains, and I even ended up in the ER, even though I'm against facilities like that. And so the point that I'm trying to make is that even I've dealt with, or I'm dealing with with that physical pain. But then lately, and it first happened about 6 months ago, I would say, I started to experience, and I'm afraid to even tell my wife this, I started to experience this feeling of impending doom, that I am dying. And, you know, I'm 41 now, but, you know, I'm vegan for a very long time, over a decade, and I was an athlete, and, you know, like, I don't smoke, I don't drink alcohol, I vape, but, you know, I haven't been doing drugs for a long time. So it's like, you know, I'm a healthy guy. I have good weight, you know, no cholesterol, no what do you call it, high blood pressure or low blood or whatever, like always perfect vitals. And so I found myself just in this panic mode. You know, maybe some of you out there have dealt with something like this. And I remember, like, I guess because, and I always say that God blessed me with a sort of nature where I'm usually like a happy go around dude. You know, I always find the positive in things. And so whenever people told me about being depressed and mental health issues, I would try to understand people, but I couldn't completely understand people. And then I found myself, and I'm finding myself where now I understand, you know, and so obviously, you know, I'm very well read and all of these other things. So I started digging internally, and I started to ask myself, like, is this a chemical imbalance in my brain because of, you know, my drug past and being a boxer, and, you know, being in crazy life situations, and like, is this my brain, you know, falling apart, or is this something deeper? Is this something spiritual? And the reason I say that is because this feeling of dying, it's like, it's very real. At least it's very real to me. It's almost like a whenever you heard people, and I've known people that, now I think back, you know, whenever they were coming close to that time, it's like they felt it, man. Every time they felt it. So, you know, I started asking myself, like, is this the time? Because it feels like the time, man. And so for the first time it happened, it was 6 months ago, and I'm talking, you know, panic attacks, and like real bad ones. You know, I'm this hard dude from, you know, all these bad neighborhoods that I lived in and been in jail and all these other things. So, you know, that feeling, that emotion was very new to me, where, you know, I'm having a panic attack, man. I can't breathe. I feel like I'm dying. I would go on, well, I did the last time, I would go on artificial intelligence like ChatGPT, just to calm myself down somehow, and you know, give it all my vitals and tell it how I'm feeling, just to hear an opinion. Like, is it possible that you know, I might be dying? And ChatGPT would tell me, look, man, you know, this is a panic attack. It's a classic case of a panic attack.